The biggest competitor to Adobe just went completely free. I'm talking about Affinity. No trials, no subscriptions, free forever. And hey, don't shoot the messenger. Which means you can now make professional YouTube thumbnails without ever touching Photoshop, and it won't cost you a cent. For the first time, I'm testing Affinity to see if it can replace Photoshop. I'm Marcus and my thumbnails have pulled over 20k views. And if you want to learn how to make thumbnails from scratch with both Photoshop and Affinity, join the waitlist for my course. It's gonna blow your mind. You can find the link in the description and in the pinned comment. So let's test it and find out.
You know, honestly, it does not feel good doing this. Like, I've been using this for so long, it's feels like cheating. Object selection tool. There we go. That is a pretty good selection. Now let's use the mask.
For the Affinity logo, I followed the exact same processes with the Photoshop one, just using the object selection tool to mask it out.
Now what I want to do is get this rectangle, drag it over this. Now, how do you get rounded corners in this? That's my question. Let's see, corner, rounded. Ah, yeah, there we go. Now, what I want to do now is I want to create this and get this one above, right? Then we'll have to clip this. Now the question remains, how in the hell do you clip something in this software? It does not matter how many buttons I push, it does not do what I want it to do. Filters, clip and mask, that's what we're looking for. Create a clip and mask. Okay, this is not right. What if we put that on top and then there we go.
The edges of the logo came out a bit jagged, so I added a rectangle to clip it clean. That way, it removes those rough edges and keeps the logo looking sharp.
Now, we can do this extremely simple, right? Just by basically making a screenshot of this, pasting it right here. But what if we go to vector, actually, and just create our own? Now, we want to create this. We should be able to, convert to curves. What in the hell are you talking about? Let's go to vector mode, by the way.
Alright, so this part actually took me way longer than it should have. I was just trying to round the corners of a triangle, something that would usually take me 1 second in Illustrator. But it's not Affinity's fault though, I was just getting used to how everything works. After that, I started creating 2 little vector icons from scratch just to get a feel for the tools and the shortcuts. But once I kinda got the hang of it, I'll be honest, I got lazy. I deleted what I made and just took a screenshot of the actual Affinity panel instead and used that as the final panel. Then it was time for the fun part, adding a fire to the Photoshop logo, and for that I used the blend options, which is basically the same as blend diff in Photoshop, to remove the black background from the flames.
Alright, something very interesting has happened. I used the deform tool. Don't do it. Crashes everything. Crashes your recordings. If you want to make videos, it crashes the program itself. So I'm not sure if this is to deform the actual layer or the fucking software. But this feels more like a distort. Well, I don't see the mesh though. Like, maybe, just maybe, I am comparing this a little bit too much to Photoshop and I should stop doing that.
And again, it took me way too long to figure out how the warp tool works in Affinity. Definitely not the program's fault, just me still getting used to everything and extremely stubborn to just look it up.
Ah, there we go. Let's double click, we found it. Now, we double click here and we double click like around here. Drag this out because that's the whole purpose of this.
After I finally figured out how the warp tool worked, I added fire to both sides of the logo. Then I threw in a third fire element to make it feel more immersive and used the hue and saturation to brighten it up, just to match the other flames since it came in a bit darker. From there, I started experimenting a little. I added some small imperfections below the fire to make it look more realistic and tried different ways to create glows. In Photoshop, I'd usually add a solid layer, set it to linear dodge, drop the opacity and just tap over the flames a few times for that glow effect. So I wanted to see how that workflow translated into Affinity. In the end, it worked out. I also added some fire ambers for a bit more movement, and then I just played around with the overall thumbnail layout from there. Next, I downloaded an image of burnt paper because I wanted the Photoshop logo to actually look like it was burning since, you know, it's literally on fire. I set that layer to multiply so the lighter parts disappear and the darker textures stay visible. After that, I just cut out everything that wasn't relevant, especially the parts that were supposed to sit behind the flames. Underneath the logo felt a little empty, so I added a platform. Then I dropped the exposure to make it darker and used a black brush to erase and bring back some light where the fire would naturally hit. basically faking that glow and adding a bit of rim lighting. To finish it off, I used the hue and saturation adjustment to push some red-orange tones into the platform so it matched the warmth of the fire. Then I added a drop shadow under the platform to make it feel more 3D and grounded. I also placed the burnt paper effect below the logo this time so it actually looks like it's burning from the outside in. To push the lighting a bit further, I added some orange highlights on top of the P and the S, set the layer to color dodge. It doesn't look like a full glow, but it reacts nicely with the light cyan in the logo, so it really feels like it's being lit by the fire. Then I had this fun idea for a split test, giving the Affinity logo a hand that points towards the Photoshop logo. You will see why in a bit. Masking out that hand was honestly a challenge. I couldn't figure out how to turn the stroke into an actual mask for a while, but eventually we got it done. So the reason I added a hand pointing at Photoshop is pretty simple. Photoshop's been the king of design software for ages, but for a lot of people, the price tag was always the problem. That's why you see people using Photopea, GIMP, maybe even Paint, anything free that could get the job done. I wanted this thumbnail to feel like Affinity was mocking Photoshop a little, because honestly, it's a bold move to drop a free tool that pretty much does what Photoshop does. Maybe not everything, but close enough to get the same results. In the next part, I started illustrating an eye, mostly to test out the illustration tools and get a feel for that side of Affinity. Then I integrated the eye into the logo, drew a simple mouth, and played around with the shadows to give it some depth. I also tried to find something similar to the Camera Raw filter, but I couldn't find an exact match. So instead, I used the color grading studio, which still let me adjust the texture, clarity, exposure, contrast, and saturation. Basically everything I needed to finish the graphic. The only thing left now is the typography, and we'll get to that next. Alright, so I added some text to the thumbnail, and Affinity actually has a full typography studio. It's a designated area where you can tweak and play with the fonts however you want. Once that was done, I added another arrow to guide the viewer's eye towards the thumbnail. The idea is simple. Even if someone starts reading the text, the layout naturally pulls their attention straight to the Affinity logo, which stands out the most. Then the Affinity logo points directly at the burning Photoshop logo, and that's what creates a curiosity. It's a subtle hint that Affinity is mocking Photoshop, maybe even replacing it. So the real question is this the new era of thumbnail design?
And if you want to learn how to design thumbnails from scratch in both Photoshop and Affinity, join the waitlist for my course. Again, it's in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you want more thumbnail tutorials with either Affinity or Photoshop, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you back in a split second. Peace.